Jews, and maybe half those Jews really care about Jewish civil rights. And so, for them, their posts don't need to be that good. They don't need to be creative. They don't even really need to be factual, to get that many people to jumpstart them and to make them go viral. Nothing is more telling than that All Eyes on Rafah, which got like 1 billion reshares. That is the largest anti-Semitism campaign in history, in my opinion. And so it is really scary, and it means our content has to be that good, that bold, and that amazing and engaging to break through the algorithm so that we can reach people who are non-Jews and that we can unite the Jewish community at the same time. And so I'm so proud to be on this panel with 3 people that are doing just that, Jews, allies, and Ziggy is very active as well, obviously. But yeah, so that's my shtick, and let's go in order and everybody tell their story a little bit.
Well, we love Zach. Let's give Zach. So creative. So creative. Hi, everyone. I'm Aliza Licht. I'm the founder of Leave Your Mark, which is a thank you. Thanks, guys. I'm the founder of Leave Your Mark, which is a multimedia brand and consultancy. I'm a 2-time author. I've spent my career in the fashion industry, and I will say that I used to think that my life back in the day was literally the devil wears Prada, and then today I'm literally trying to fight the devil, Hamas. So essentially, on October 7th, I turned into an accidental activist like many people. I am the granddaughter of 4 Holocaust survivors, and it became very clear very quickly that it was not about clients or followers. It was really about, will my grandparents look down on me and be proud? And I had unfortunately just launched my second book called On Brand, which is about building a personal brand. And being a Jewish activist, quite frankly, wasn't on brand for me. I was never someone who was speaking out online about causes. I, of course, came to support friends of mine in different communities, but being political online, being someone who is outspoken was never something that I considered within my own brand guardrails. So if you've heard of the book On Being Jewish Now, which was published by Zibby Owens and Zibby Books, I'm one of the 75 authors who contributed an essay to the anthology, and the topic is being a Jewish activist was never on brand for me. And perhaps some of you today are here because it's not on brand for you either, but we are at a conference called Never Is Now. So as of this moment, make it on brand for you. Woo.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Lu'ay Al-Sharif. I am a content creator of languages and history and a peace activist on social media, and I love to announce that my favorite new title is what Al Jazeera been putting me on a shame list for. It's called a normalizer. So I'm a proud normalizer.
Woo! Woo!
They're saying, how dare you, shame on you for normalizing relations between Arabs and Israelis. And I say, that's a compliment, thank you so much. So I'm a proud normalizer, and I would like to add one thing what Zach said about, yes, we are 2 billion people. People like me are not the majority. We are a growing minority of peace activists who stand with the Jewish people for different reasons. My personal reason why I support the Jewish people and the state of Israel's legitimacy so much is that I believe it's for my region, for my personal integrity as a Muslim and as a person who believes in God. You cannot really believe and love God so much without loving the Jewish people. That is so important. And also as Muslims, we honor, revere, and bless prophets who we keep disconnecting the fact that they were Israelites and they lived in a land they called Israel, and many of us are named after, but without knowing. And we don't appreciate what the Jewish people introduced to the world. I always say the world should always remember that the Jewish people taught the world how to write. The writing, when we say Ezra the scribe, what's the big deal about the scribe? He taught the world how to write. You know, the Jews, ancient Jews, when they were writing on scrolls, when they counted the words, if something is wrong with the count, they would not just get rid of the scroll, they would bury it. This is why we have lots of treasures called the Genizas, which are the buried scrolls, and we learned a lot from this way of writing. I believe that we are a growing minority, but always remember the Arab peace activists are like the Hasmoneans or the Maccabees. The Maccabees who stood against the Seleucids were a minority Jews. The majority Jews in the land of Israel were Greek Jews who were so okay with the Seleucids, why not, so. But Yehuda and Mattatyahu, his father, and then the Hasmoneans stood up against them, and they became the norm now. And inshallah, one day, Arabs and Muslims will become the norm and the normalizers who believe that this region is for Arabs and Israelis to live, thrive, and prosper together, inshallah.
That was amazing. Hi, I'm Melinda Strauss, and I actually started as a food blogger like 15 years ago. So, and I still really consider myself a food blogger, even though when TikTok started and I started on TikTok, because I go where the apps tell me to go, except for Snapchat, because my kids tell me I am too old for that. So I'm everywhere else but Snapchat. I'm working on it. But when I started on TikTok, people would ask me questions, like I would just mention in passing that I was going to be, offline for Sabbath, and they were like, "What's that? What does kosher mean?" Because I talk about kosher food, because this is how I live my life as a modern Orthodox Jew. And from there, I started realizing that people don't know anything about Jews. And I felt like I'm in a position where I love to talk. I feel like it's my gift, and I can explain to people how I live my life every day. And with that came people who did not actually realize that anti-Semitism still exists. People thought that it ended when the Holocaust ended. And that was something I would get comments about that. And I was like, well, that's insane. Because as Jews, we live our lives every day, and we see it in different ways, whether it's in person or online. So I started talking about anti-Semitism. And with that, just everything kind of flowed. I don't consider myself an accidental activist. I don't know if even activist is the right word. I just feel like I'm an educator. And with that comes teaching people about Israel and teaching people about Jews and anti-Semitism. I learned on this recent trip, Zach and I were actually on a trip in Israel. And I learned something really powerful about this word, hasbara, which is what I always considered like, we're hasbara creators. You go to Israel, what do? I say hasbara. But it really means to explain, like defensively explain, right? To explain yourself versus to be on the forefront of education. And so it's something that I think that we should be fighting back against, is that we're not on the defensive. That's not our job as Jews, is to constantly be defending ourselves. And that we can share about, for me, I find that I fight anti-Semitism through education, through people understanding us a little bit better, right? So much hate in the world comes from people who just don't know anything about the thing that they hate. So they get to know us a little bit better. We don't need them to become us. We're not trying to convert people to Judaism. That's actually one of the things in Judaism, is that we do not convert others intentionally, but just getting to know us a little bit better, so we're not this mystery. So when they do hear hateful things, because it's out there, they understand us a little bit better, and they're not so easily convinced to hate us.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Okay, so let's just jump into it. So I really want to hear about everyone's strategies for combating anti-Semitism. I know for me, the thing that seems to work time and time again is just being bold and coming up with an idea that is really entertaining. Like if I remove the Jewish part and like the hasbara, whatever you want to call it, it would still be a great idea, and it would still be catchy and captivating and provocative. That's where my head always goes. It seems like a combination of that. And also, I studied political communications at UPenn, so there are obviously media strategies that are universal, I think, too, in terms of persuasion. But I do think, for me, the bold is what I see time and time again being that thing that actually breaks through the clutter. And if I have a fact, but I don't think I have an idea that is big enough to present that fact, I'm constantly just going, how can I layer that? And a good example of that is, did anybody see Gaza Graduation? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good example. I always like sharing with people because it shows how you can go viral too. It's like, college kids are screaming globalized Antifada and they don't know what that means. Okay, how do we, raise awareness that this is a really big problem? Okay, well, we could interview college kids. Great. Oh, graduation's coming up. Oh, we're a capping gown. Oh, they have the same color on Amazon as the Hamas headbands. I'll wear the bright green, one. Let's make it a game show. Let's put graduation music in the background. Everyone loves a game show. Everybody relates to graduate. So it's like you layer it, and then you get something that literally makes its way to Congress. That video played as testimony, which is wild because it's like kind of a comedy thing, but it played as testimony, and they made the 3 college presidents last spring watch it and answer to it. But it really is, like, to me, it's layers, and it's like being as specific and tailor-made as possible. So that's what I see working, but I know you guys all do different stuff. So what do you find to be the most effective?
First of all, Zach, I think you're effective also because you're using comedy through your messaging, which that shouldn't be news to you. You know you're doing that, right? I find, in my perspective, how I want to be every day, and I don't want to, everything is so heavy, everything is so dark. So the way that I am curating the news, and this has become sort of my shtick, if you will, because I am consuming so much. I do not trust the media in most cases, so I'm trying to find citizen journalists who are trustworthy and doing deep research to make sure that what I'm putting out there is hopefully accurate. But I decided to create what is the medium called the Daily Salad, where obviously you put a lot of ingredients into a salad, but I do it through the lens of sarcasm and snark, because at the end of the day, how many times...
Snarky?
I know.
Snarky.
How many times can you open your phone and just want to burst into tears? So for me, that's how I find people can consume how much news I'm putting out, because I think it's easier to digest, and I think we sort of have similar threads in that way. And that's what I try to do. And then certain things get standalone topics. I do much longer form content than probably the Instagram algorithm wants me to. But at the end of the day, I think getting news sources that are credible to people who want to listen and learn is really what our priority is.
You're so fast with it too. Like, how do you, like, you're typically one of the first people on a story. Like, I'll learn about things from you, and then an hour later I'll start seeing more about it. Like, are you just on your phone like a pariah? Just like, no, I'm carrying, like, or do you have a team that's getting, like, really, because you are becoming, you are what I would consider like a breakout independent journalist.
Oh, thank you, Zach. No, there's no team. It's me. And I also work, you know, a normal job. I'm a consultant in brand strategy. I would say that I have always been deeply on X, previously Twitter, and I have cultivated what I call a nutritious timeline. So I am being fed by very smart people all day long, and I am constantly finger on the pulse of that news. And I consult on social media strategy for brands. So I know how to be very fast in terms of content creation. And because I've created this nutritious timeline of people that I trust, I can see multiple sources at the same time and be like, okay, this is happening right now. I feel good about putting it out. And yes, I am fast because I've been doing it for a really long time.
Cool.
I do it through the lens of education and archaeology. I do believe that the greatest weapon the Jewish people in Israel ever had is archaeology and history. That is so important. And in the Arab world, the most well-known anti-Semitic thing is that we imported it from Europe, which is the protocols of the Elders of Zion, or the conspiracy theory about Jews taking over the world or controlling the media or doing this and that, and then the legitimacy of Israel. So combating this through education and knowledge and archaeology is so important, and social media is the arena. And the third part is telling the American people and the Europeans and the Canadians and everywhere we travel that we are the credible voices from the region. Please listen to the credible voices from the region, warning you that there are people who come to your countries, misuse your liberal freedoms in order to populate hate disguised with freedom of speech. This is something... This is important, and also we always have to remember that Israel's case should be, and the Jewish people case should always have this connection undisputed. Now we are going to celebrate, the Jewish people. Since I'm an honorary Jew, I would say we are going to celebrate.
It's a very nice kippah you got.
Very modern one.
It works.
Purim next week, I think. Purim. So we need to, I create content telling my Arab audience and my fellow Muslims the story of Purim, and how the story of Purim was a similar story of what's happening right now. Haman was advising
Who's got a grogger?
Haman was advising Ahasuerus to obliterate the Jewish people, and it didn't work. And the modern day Hamans should never be able to do it as well, and we should stand against them because they failed in the past, they fail in the present, and they will fail in the future.
Yeah.
Education is the way, and archaeology to prove Israel's legitimacy will debunk and refute lots of anti-Semitic claims in the Middle East.
And what made you specifically want to become an Arab educator? Like, what made you want to go against the grain? Like you said, you're a small but growing minority. How did that happen for you?
My personal story should give you hope. I've been telling it a lot.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. Lots of things changed now in terms of education, but I do remember that we were educated lots of bad things about Jews. Jews have fangs. Jews are bad. Jews are evil. You should never take Jews. And
My great-grandfather was from Transylvania.
There you go.
Some of us may have fangs.
You should never take Jews. You should never take Jews and Christians as friends. You should never trust them. But one experience changed my life in Paris and France when I wanted to study French, and I did a homestay program. And by coincidence, I ended up with a Jewish family.
Wow.
When I saw the Star of David, in their living room, I was about to scream. Because the Star of David resembled the Egyptian TV series of Jews and Israelis, and you should be afraid of them. And then
This is just like that scene in Borat. I remember when he goes to the
the Jewish mother was so good. 2 Jewish Shabbat meals did it.
Yeah.
So. But really, I learned Judaism from the source, and I became an activist in 2017 because I do lots of content in ancient Arabian languages.
Yeah.
So 2017, I became an activist, telling people the story of Israel and how it's connected to Islam and how Islam and Judaism are.
Yeah.
But after October 7, I became more and more vocal because I saw it's a moment of truth.
Yeah.
Either if you really changed from being someone who cursed the Jews and Israelis when he was young to someone who really blessed the house of Israel.
Yeah.
Or in Hebrew, as you know, Ma tovo ohalecha Yaakov, mishkinutecha Yisrael. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Favorite. If you really change, you have to stand up, and that amplified my desire. And I really have a strong belief that Israel will win as it won before in the past.
Damn right. I love hearing that. By the way, and it's similar, I'm sure you've met Luai Ahmed, but very similar story. Like, grew up in Yemen and was told, like, Jews are evil and they suck the blood out of people's necks. And then he went to Europe for college, and he was just like, oh, everything I've been told
and that's
is a lie.
And these 2 stories, I know Luai is a good
They're very similar, yeah.
Many people in the Middle East are victims of brainwash.
Yeah.
This is why I don't get mad when I see people call me normalizer, Zionist, and so I say they will come around one day. But you know what? We should focus on educating them and saving them.
Yeah.
Saving them.
Yeah, and we'll get to Melinda, but just like bullet point on that too. It's like, that's such a good reminder of why it is so important for the Jewish people and people who care about the Jewish people and care about peace between Jews and Arabs to be making content, because the Jewish people are so small. It's so easy to create things like Jews have fangs, because most Muslims in the Middle East will never meet a Jew. So they, you can convince them that.
And we are your best ally.
Yeah.
The non-Jewish voices are your best ally, and we are here for you.
Love it. Cool, man. All right, Melinda.
Okay. So first of all, I agree with education. That's very much my go-to. Education is how I fight anti-Semitism. When October 7th happened, I made a decision pretty quickly not to be a breaking news source. I rely on people, actually, like with both of you guys, and I love when Elisa's like doing her makeup and sharing the news. I'm obsessed. I love watching both at the same time. It's by the way, for anyone who is sharing, like, it doesn't have to just be you staring at a screen. You could be doing other things at the same time if you could chew gum and walk at the same time, go for it. Elisa, it's very impressive. I can't do it. But I decided not to be a breaking news source because very quickly I felt the pressure of it. And I realized there's so many news sources out there, so many people I can trust that I can share their content, that I wanted to continue doing what I was doing, which was education. It meant I was talking a lot more about Israel than before, and sharing about the hostages, and sharing about, and being someone who could also be somebody else's, like, the through-between, that they can use me to share their content as well when people have stories to share. And actually, very quickly, I started going on Israel missions, which was just unbelievable. I've done 3 so far, and just any opportunity to show people what Israel really looks like. right? Because how many people who hate us have never even stepped foot in the Middle East, anywhere in the Middle East? Oh, there's my phone. We're just pretending that's not there. No, don't worry about it. It was just so I can get videos of you guys looking all cute. But I just wanted to be someone to continue sharing education. And I went louder because that's really a big rule for me, is if they're gonna be louder in their hate, then I'm gonna be louder with education and with love. And I don't wanna be a person who's sharing, there's a lot of really horrible things that are happening all the time. And again, sometimes it feels like I need to share it, but I don't want it all on my page. I don't love the word safe space, but I also feel like I do like that when people come to my page and they're scrolling through and they're watching my videos, they can feel like at least there's a trigger warning when something's coming up that can be really intense. But to me, it's not all about the news, right? That goes back to a little bit of the Hasbara for me, where there's the self-defense versus being on the offense and teaching people. So that's really, because I'm so with you on education for me, because there's so many different ways to go about this. What you guys do is so important. The comedy, I'm not a very funny person, so I'm not gonna try and be a comedian. So it's really figuring out how to use your own voice and not try and be like other people. Let them inspire you. If you're funny, watch all of Zach's videos. And then don't try to be Zach, but be inspired by Zach. If you can do makeup really well and share, watch what Elisa's doing. Like it's taking what someone else is doing and being inspired by that. Even when I was a food blogger who used to take all of my own pictures, I would go online and I would look at other people's pictures. I wasn't copying their picture, but it inspired me because I'm like, I can't figure out how to like put this food here and this plate there. But I went online and I found other people who were doing something that I loved. And if I love what they were doing, I wanted to recreate that in my own way. So I just want to share that as inspiration, because each of us does something different. That if you're somebody out there, and I hope that a lot of you are here because you want to use your voice, and there's different ways to use it. Sometimes it's sharing our content. Sometimes it's actually putting your voice out there in a new and scary way. To do it in a way that's your voice, that's for you, and not trying to be anybody else, because that's what's really going to connect people, right? I make sure that food is still always a part of what I do. I have a cookbook that's coming out, by the way. So excited. Pre-sales will be this month. Technically, it's on Amazon already, but not with the right cover. But the book's coming out September 2nd, and the whole goal of my book is to teach people about Judaism through food. So if you're Jewish already and you just want to learn more, you just want really good recipes, that's great. But I imagine people, non-Jewish, who ask me all the time, is it okay if I make challah? I'm like, yeah, make challah, eat it, do whatever you want, make French toast, have fun. Like, I want people to be able to make our food and feel comfortable. And sometimes it's just knowing why the hamantashen are made when you're making them, so you can actually like get behind. It's not just I'm eating hamantashen, but where does it come from and what's the education behind it? So it all comes back to education.
The more you learn, the fatter you get.
Heck yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's the goal.
You'll know if people have changed when they come to your book signings and they're huge.
I just want to add one thing, because I don't think everyone in this room is necessarily going to be a content creator. Yeah. You can show thought leadership in the comments. Mm-hmm. It's really important to understand how important it is to comment on creator content. It is what makes the algorithm go, in addition to sharing it.
Okay, so let's go back to 10-7. So, I think 10-7 comes at a really interesting time in history because, like I said, we're losing the PR war, right? And 10-7 happens at a time when social media is really starting to take over the mainstream media as we know it, and so social media is now much bigger than the actual legacy media. I think for me, the thing I see, the promise I see at least, right, is social media has been used to propagate the biggest anti-Semitism campaign in history to corners of the earth where they've never met a Jew, right? But at the same time, it means that every single person in this room is now, someone who can fight the PR war, someone who can play a particular role in the media, in shaping the media and putting out the facts. So, we're in this new post-10-7 landscape. At least that's how I see it. The way I keep looking at it as the biggest pro is that the diaspora of Jews, right? We are connected visually, right? In a way that we've never been connected before. Israeli media and American media used to be pretty separate. I mean, Jews here were consuming one thing, Israelis were consuming another. That barrier has totally shattered, and it shattered across the world in a lot of ways. And so, I get messages all the time from people all across the world, Jews, Christian, about 50-50, which is honestly inspiring me to keep going. And I get moderate Muslims all the time, but it's really cool. It means, we can all have one giant global conversation to combat what we're seeing too. So at least my perspective, I would say, after 10/7 is that there's a lot of opportunity, and I find social media to honestly be a little bit spiritual in that sense. I actually think there's something holy about the way it can bring our community together to defend our community and bring our allies together so that we can actually have peace through posting. I'm also writing a book called Dirty Jew. It's not out yet, but Melissa plugged hers. But that's a lot of what I'm thinking of. So for me, that's where I really see post 10/7 as it woke a lot of people up. We would never be on this stage, right, if it wasn't for 10/7, because, it really brought us all together, and it brought a lot of content creators. And so even though a lot of Hollywood's been disappointing, right, it almost doesn't matter as much anymore. Like, literally the movies at the Oscars, I don't think any, like, the one who won, like, I've never heard of it. You know what I mean? Like I think most of it. So it's like, that's kind of the old way, and it doesn't matter as much, and now we can elevate the right voices and connect the right voices to actually fight the propaganda. So that's my take, but how do you see 10/7 as a shift in what you've done, and how do you see it as a shift, both positive and negative, in the scheme of where the Jewish people stand in the Jewish story?
So I am a former publicist, and I can tell you, Israel is not losing the PR war. Israel has never fought the PR war. It has never been a priority of Israel to think about the optics and the messaging and the way that they're shaping their narrative. They have focused on survival, right? So I think that's just 101 in terms of it's never happened. And over the course of years, I've known people who have tried to shape strategy, get in there, really try to help them from a communication standpoint. It is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. The PR war, as we call it, the other side, as you said earlier, has a machine, and the reason why it works is because the messaging is simple, right? Oppressed, oppressor, river to the sea, genocide, apartheid.
Death to the Jews.
Right. So, and I think if every single Jew in this building right now got together to say, let's shape strategy, there would be 5,000 opinions on what that strategy should be. So that's not to be a downer, but it's to say we have to stop looking for other people's validation. That's really what it is. We have to stop making, like you said, Hollywood heroes. Nobody is coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves in terms of being loud and proud. And I think that is the most important weapon we have. And to your point, it is why we have survived all of these thousands of years. It's because we actually are indestructible when we are loud and proud.
But that's amazing. But do you see positivity then in this new media shift that now we're, think about Jews during the Holocaust, right? When things were getting really bad, all they could do was talk to each other behind closed doors. Now we can talk into a camera and it can reach millions of people. I mean, how do you see that shift?
Because I work in social media, I am very, aware of the echo chamber in terms of how we communicate. So it is really important to partner with people that are outside of your network, to say to your network, please share my content to get it beyond my walled garden of people who follow. I do believe that if social media existed in 1938, it would look a lot like this.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
So that's why we all can't just sit around waiting for someone to do something. There's not big meetings happening in all the traditional Jewish organizations that they're putting together this massive strategy. Like, we are the strategy. If you all are not doing something, whether it's online or in real life, you have to ask yourself why. Who are you waiting for?
Cool. All right, Luai, how do you see 10/7 as a shift in what you've been doing? Because you've been doing it before.
Yes. Before Israel retaliated to any of the attacks on October 7, the world was already condemning Israel.
Yeah.
So it seems that Israel is the only country that is not allowed to win any war.
Correct.
Or should never retaliate to any aggression.
Oh, you sound like the BBC.
Yeah. But I want to say that when I fight for my survival, I focus first on my survival and then for my PR. I would be very honest with you. I would focus more because what happened on October 7, by the way, Hamas' worst miscalculation or worst calculation is that they killed the most pacifist Israelis who really believed in a Palestinian state,
Yeah.
who came to me in my comments and they say, you are more Zionist than I am, by the way. Many of them, may God have mercy on their souls. And the thing is that many narratives changed after that, especially that I always ask people, what would you do if you keep blaming Israel? What would you do? Hamas, because they don't really care for their people. They don't care for their population. They are using their death counts, as they call the tactical counts, as a weapon against Israel. And this is why so many people are sympathizing with what's happening, because they are good people and they don't want to see the death toll keeps on growing. But I say that there are things that we can clarify more about Israel. Like in the Arab media, when we tell people that Israel is not an apartheid, that Israel has 2.1 million Arab Muslim citizens, that Israel is allowing a freedom of worship, that Israel is not a state that against Muslim or Islam, as we are taught in the Arab world, or so many of us are taught, and Israel is fighting for its own very existence. This is not a normal war. This is a war for its very existence. And I'm so sure that it will win. And then we can talk about PR recovery. But I would, if I was honestly, Zach, if I was the prime minister or the whatever of Israel, I would focus first on getting my hostages back, on ending this war, on securing my borders, on making sure that it's not going to happen again.
Right.
And then let's talk about PR, those who are upset, because people will be upset against Israel anyway.
Right.
Especially in the Arab world, where people who think that Israel is not a legitimate state, they will not be, unless their way of thinking and their education is changed. Maybe we can talk. But there are still people who think that Israel should never exist.
Yeah.
And Israel is occupying all. And then you educate people, but Israel is not occupying Gaza. Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza in 2005, and there was no occupation. And many things were going to move forward for the Palestinians, and I do believe the Palestinians have the right to live in dignity alongside their Israeli neighbors. But first, I want to destroy those who spoil peace like Hamas, and then I would think about my PR in recovery.
Interesting. Well, I'll be out of a job if that's true. So
Zach,
next.
Sorry.
No, I'm kidding.
Can you just speak to the Hollywood Walk of Fame video you and Montana just did? Because you put in footage that was somebody who didn't believe any of this happened.
Yeah, he was runs a thing called Palestinian News Network. I swear to God, sometimes I feel like God sends me the people that are supposed to be in the videos. We literally get there and it was like guest number 2. He's like, I read the Palestinian News Network. No babies died on 10/7. The baby, like, I was just like, all right, thank you, God. I guess he was supposed to, like, really, because these people exist and they're supposed to be in these things.
They don't believe anything happened. I mean, that's what you're up against.
It was a bit of a curveball. What do you want me to say about it specifically?
No, I think that's another mentality. No,
Okay,
well,
I'm kidding.
I just think you're talking about people who have been indoctrinated a certain way, and then we're talking about people who literally are deniers.
It's a really good, I mean, they're in denial about footage Hamas posted. He was like, oh, no babies were kidnapped. They filmed themselves kidnapping it. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know what you do about that. I mean, there is a deep level of Jew hatred in the Muslim community that I'm sure you can attest to. I mean, it's in there. There are verses in the Quran you can't erase. So I don't know exactly what you do.
But these are interpretations of the Quran.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be very honest.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
the
your
Quran
thought,
the Quran praises the children of Israel in a way that is unprecedented, and
Yep.
also blames the Jews, for example, for worshiping the golden calf. But who are the Jews who are worshiping the golden calf today?
I worship that thing every morning.
But I'm just saying,
There is.
there are
A big statue in my living room.
there are interpretations, and this is why I always say Islam needs a nostra tate, like something like what the Christian church did when the Catholic Church stopped blaming the Jews for killing Jesus, who was also Jewish, and then educating people about that. We need something like that in Islam that teaches people how to look at the modern day and the modern age and how to view Israel. Because I'll be very honest with you, a real moderate Muslim before the 1947 or so, there was a journal in British Mandate Palestine calling Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa the place that it's the same site, undisputedly, what was called the Solomon's Temple.
Right.
That's a 1927 journal in British Mandate Palestine. when Israel was reborn, not founded, reborn, because Israel was born in 3000 by King David, and then when it was reborn in 1947, this narrative changed. It was called the so-called temple. The same Muslims who called it undisputedly Solomon's temple, they called it the so-called temple. So I personally believe that there is no contradiction. Islam should not be the faith that is the continuation of what Pharaoh and Haman and the Seleucids wanted to do with the Jewish people. It should be the house of Ishmael's faith that aligned and thrives alongside the house of Israel.
Yeah.
I love that. Listen, you give me hope. I hope more Muslims can think like, I don't know.
Think of Yehuda
Yeah.
and the Maccabees. They
Right,
were
right.
so minority, and they
It's
were.
true.
I do want to say one thing also with education, but also with the PR war. I don't think about it too often, but
Maybe it's not the best word. Eliza might be right. I don't know.
one of the reasons that we'll never win the PR war is because their side of things, they work with hate, right? That's what riles them up. It's so simple. When you hate something, it's so black and white.
And hate goes viral way more than love. You see it algorithmically time and time again.
Yeah, and it's so easy to hate. It's
Scary.
something very natural for people to want to hate. When you think about gossip, you think about people in their lives, it's so easy to judge others. That's why we have all the commandments, because it's so natural to want to feel jealousy, to feel these things. But what's really amazing about being Jewish and being an ally is that we are never going to stoop to their level. So we may always lose the PR war, but I'd rather lose the PR war and never use hate to try and win. Because that's the only way that we're going to get there, is by stooping to their level, and we can never do that. And when you think about history, what has history taught us over and over and over again is that our enemies no longer exist. They just don't exist through like thousands of years of history. The ancient Persians, the ancient Greeks, they no longer exist on this earth. That's it. So when you think about like one day, please God, Hamas will be so far in the future, they will not exist anymore. And that's a huge thing we have to remember.
And never be apologetic.
But Greek life is still roaring.
Never be apologetic. Never be apologetic what you are, of your identity. I always tell my Israeli and Jewish friends, be proud of being those who say you are not connected to the land. Educate them and tell them what the word Jew means. The word Jew, your ancestors were never called Jews before 586 BCE. They were called the Israelites or the Hebrews. Only in 586, when they were taken to the Babylonians, the Babylonians inquired of their origins, where you guys are coming from. They say, we come from Judea. We are the Jews. Because that portion of the land, when Joshua ben Nun partitioned it after the 12 sons of Jacob, that portion of the land was called Yehuda, the fourth son of Jacob. Or else, if you were taken from the portion of the land that was called Binyamin, you would now be called Binyaminites, or Ephraimites, or farther north, Danites. But you are Jews for a reason. You are connected to this land. And I believe the house of Ishmael, us, as a faithful child of Ishmael, we should be the greatest supporters of the Jewish people, because you have a tiny land. Abraham, when he was so worried about Ishmael, God told him, I will bless him. God blessed us. He gave us 22 states and oil. We are blessed enough to let the Jewish people live in that tiny land.
So good.
All right, we got a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask.
Interrupt for just one thing.
You can interrupt me. No, do whatever
I'm
you want.
interrupting Zach.
You want to switch seats? No, I'm kidding.
There's just one really important thing that I want to say from your question about October
Yeah,
7th
yeah.
and the change with that is, and this is something I think to every single person in this room, including us four on stage, and this is another lesson from history, is after October 7th, a lot more Jews started wearing their Star of David. They started becoming more proud.
Never wore my Star of David before 10/7. I was a proud Jew, but I just wasn't thinking.
And there's a lot who were never so openly proud, and there's something to really think about there. And this isn't a good thing, but also something that we need to learn from this, is that we shouldn't need tragedies with our people in order for us to be proud, openly proud Jews. Because that's something we've seen through history a lot.
Yeah.
Amen.
All right, I tried to ChatGPT summarize all this in my head. There's like a couple questions, and I think that they sort of come down to one sort of thesis, which is, for the why, it literally says, do you fear for your life? And then there's one for you that's like, do you fear about your brand? So I think fear is a really, I think it is a really good, we're at a conference called Never Again is now, how do you push through the fear? I think a lot of people want to do what they're doing, but they're scared. Bravery isn't easy, right? Like, there's a lot less brave people than there are people who are cowards. We're seeing it in Hollywood right now. It's not to say people in this audience are cowards, not brave. I think you just have to, at least what I lean on, is that we're on the right side of history, for me, and then I want you guys to say kind of what gets you through your fear, either publicity or with your religion or with your cooking. I don't know if you're afraid of your cooking. But for me, it's just, we have to be fearless. I mean, you have to think about our ancestors, right? And all they went through. I come from a similar place as Eliza, which is just like, my ancestors fled the pogroms in Europe just years before the Holocaust so that, I could come and live the American dream. And what was the point of it all if I was going to be silent in a moment like this? That's what, whenever I have I don't get afraid that much, but I should. But that's what gets me through it. It's like, think about the context of what you're fighting for and really why you're here. We're so lucky to be in this country. We're so lucky to be on this earth. And our ancestors just fought so fucking hard so that we could be free. Like, it really is. It comes down to that for me. So that's what pulls me out of my head if I ever get bogged down. What about you guys? And put it into the context of what you do specifically. And yeah.
Want to go first?
Yeah, I think knowledge is power. So I think when you come at all of these topics with deep research and you are confident in what you're saying, the only thing that would make me scared is being wrong and putting out misinformation or disinformation and having someone negate what I have just put myself out there saying. So I think, to your point, I think about the same thing, my ancestors, but I also think, like, yes, we're up here, but what we're doing is nothing extraordinary. We are behind our phones. Zach went to the West Bank. He deserves way more credit than me. And I guess Melinda from your kitchen. But, we are not, the extraordinary people, the heroes, are the ones who are actually fighting for us right now to bring the hostages home. So what we're doing, it's nothing compared to that. So I think we all have to be very bold
Think about it in context of the bigger picture,
First time I was in Israel was November 2024 when I went there. I know it's crazy.
Advocated for it before you even went?
Yeah, but I know.
Are brave, you're crazy.
So when I arrived, immediately 2 hours after, I went to Dizengoff, and I was a guest by Ms. Rada Khouts, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then we immediately heard the sirens, went to the safe room. So that was at that time a drone fired by Hezbollah. Went to the safe room, very calm, and the lady, Noa, she asked me, "Lu'ay, you're not afraid?" I told her, "Noa, I want to tell you one thing. Those who fired this drone hold a pathological creed that I was influenced by when I was a kid. I defeated it. If you defeat the darkness and you see the light, you become fearless, and no fear at all." And I remember God's words to Joshua bin Nun when he was afraid of being intimidated by the new generation of Jews to enter the land. God told him what I always have in my hand, and Joshua is praised in Islam, by the way. He's a great prophet of God. God told him, "Hazak ve'ematz al ta'aros ve'al tehat ki immicha Adonai Elohecha bechol asher tilech." Haven't I commanded you, be strong and courageous? For that I am the Lord your God, will be with you wherever you go. I expect to die any time. I love Egyptian President Sadat, who paid his life for peace. I am willing to pay my life for peace, to meet the Lord and tell him I did my best to bring the children of Ishmael and Isaac together, rather than putting lots of work to divide.
Melinda, why do you cook?
Why do I cook?
Thank you so much.
Wow, look at that, bro.
Thank you so much.
Dude, do like a little twirl. Do like a bow.
So good.
Melinda, how are you gonna top that?
Listen, there is no topping that.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
No pressure, but that was pretty. That was a standing ovation.
That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
I do want to say this. I think it's incredible that you don't feel fear, and I think it's also okay to feel fear. Because I feel it. I don't feel fear for my life every day. Sometimes it's like, Mel, hopefully somebody doesn't find your house. Like, I get that, right? Like, people out there can be a little crazy. So you got to be.
You guys want her address? Just come to me.
Yeah, give it to all of you. Setting boundaries in my life has been really important for that. But I also live by this: feel the fear, but do it anyways. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay. It's totally normal to be afraid, to pick up your camera and speak to it. Like, I look like an idiot when I'm walking my dog in the morning and I'm talking to my phone. All my neighbors must think I'm crazy. But it doesn't matter because I feel like what I want to say is so important and I'm thinking about who I'm speaking to, right? I'm not speaking for myself. Sometimes I use it as therapy. Sometimes I'll get up and talk about my own life, but I have a lot of rules for when I'm on social media, these boundaries. But one of them is if I'm thinking it, other people are thinking it. So if I feel fear, other people are thinking it. If I'm frustrated about something going on the internet, because that happens a lot with the way that things are shared, I'm going to share it because I know other people are thinking it. I think back to, oh my gosh, was it 2019 when this rabbi was literally, murdered with a machete in New York, if anyone remembers this moment. And the world was silent. And I didn't think about it at the time until months later, what happened with George Floyd, and the world was so loud. And I remember making a video just thinking how frustrated I was, not with how loud they were, but more with how their loudness made me realize how silent they were about a Jewish man murdered with a machete. Like, it's still like, I'm like, it was a machete, guys. It's so crazy to me. And so I thought it, which meant other people were thinking it, so I shared it. And the backlash was crazy. It was the first time I had ever experienced backlash like that from people. But that made me want to share more because I knew that people were connecting to it. So if you're afraid, and again, like Elisa said, not everybody in this room is going to be all of a sudden a social media superstar, but if you're feeling something, share it, even if it's with the person next to you, because it's not always about how we share online, but it's also about how we share with people around us, or how we comment on their videos. I'll get people who message me privately, and I'm like, write that on the video too, because I want other people to see it, or I'll ask permission to share it. But there's so many ways to use our voices, but it's okay to feel fear while you're doing it. But do it anyways, because you're making a huge difference.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll say to close, thank you so much, Melinda. So let me just, I'll give like a minute spiel to close it out. It was awesome learning from you guys today. You really are educators, seriously. All three of you are incredible people. And Yuzik, you're an incredible puppy.
He's the best.
But no, okay, one thing I'll say too, because I want to inspire you guys. I really do. I hear what you're saying. Yes, Israel's security is more important than the PR, the Hasbara. I agree with that to an extent, but also we are so outnumbered here that we need as many people speaking up as possible. And I can't say enough, social media can be our biggest asset to our survival. It really, really can. And so it doesn't mean you have to be a content creator. I have a business partner who is my polar opposite, Omri Durrani. He's the biggest introvert ever. Unlike me, you go to his Instagram, 0 posts, 0. He is behind the scenes. You'll never see him on camera. He doesn't even like being in photos, but he is a major player behind the scenes. So being a part of the media that is going to matter, it doesn't mean you have to be in front of the camera, but it means being a part of that. Engage in the comments, and don't just repost and share our videos. Like share them with non-Jewish people. Like every share you get to a non-Jew, I always say this in the comment section of my videos. I'm like, I challenge you to share this with 5 non-Jewish friends today. And that really does, like, I'm getting an audience for my videos that are past the Jewish crowd because I'm encouraging my audience, specifically calling them to action, to spread them past just Jews and branch outside of the echo chamber, and day by day, little by little, we are doing it. So I really do think that's important. And then the other thing I'll say is, seriously, I think so many people are so afraid of the negative things that will happen if they speak up that they don't even realize the positive things that are gonna happen that are so much bigger and better and just more freaking awesome. Like, my life has been filled. There was a small part of me at the very beginning after 10/7. I knew I was going to speak up. I knew I was going to, defend our people and spread the truth. And then there was a little part of me that was genuinely afraid of the consequences of my career. Look at me now. I'm on stage in front of all you guys. My career, I didn't lose anything. If I lost anything, I don't know about it. And I've gained so much more from people. And seriously, and I'm sure everyone on the stage can say the same thing. So really, don't be afraid of what, bad could happen. Be excited about all the good you get. I'm telling you, the same comments I get, the community I've built. Like, every night I get to go to bed looking forward to all of the DMs I get from people, all the messages from people all around the world encouraging me to keep going. And that is the beauty of of social media. It truly is social. People tell me all the time that I'm speaking up for them. You guys are speaking up for me. You guys are encouraging me to keep going, and you will get the same feedback loop through social media, I'm telling you. So seriously, be a warrior and keep these 3 facts in your pocket, because I always like saying these 3 facts to me, you can debate anyone who is on the other side with these. 1, Israel left Gaza in 2005. There is no occupation. 2, there is 1 Jewish state and over 55 Arab and Muslim states, right? Those are really, really important. Oh, what's the third? What's the third? What's the third?
You got this.
Oh my God, I always say this. I'm having a brain fart. Those are the 2 big ones. Yeah, and there's no apartheid. No, but there was another one. Anyway, those are 2 really good ones. And just keep those in your back pocket constantly. Seriously, because it gives you confidence. You don't need to know much more than that. Like, and you stop people in their tracks. You really do. You stop people in their tracks when you say there's 1 Jewish state, 55. I'm telling you, and it's a shocking thing, most non-Jews do not know there's 1 Jewish state and 55 plus Arab Muslim states. And when you frame it out, when you zoom out into the bigger picture, that Palestine was created as an identity to destroy Israel, and that the real David and Goliath is Israel as David, and Goliath is our enemies. You just need to remind people of that bigger picture, and you do end up garnering much more sympathy, and you stop these crazy pro-Hamas people in their tracks. You really do. So keep those 2 facts, and when I get the third, I'll post it. You guys should all follow me, Zach Sage.
I think the third might be that Arabs are full citizens in Israel.
Oh, yes, that 20% of Israel. Yes, I think that was it. Anyway, I'm writing my book. I don't have it all written down yet. But anyway, you guys are amazing. Thank you all so much for being there. Fight hate wherever you see it, and be the star you want to see. Seriously, guys.